Nigeria recorded a major milestone in its economic and financial reforms following its official removal from the European Union's list of high-risk countries for money laundering and terrorism financing. This development comes after Nigeria exited the Financial Action Task Force FATF grey list in October 2025. The federal government says the achievement reflects strong political will, institutional reforms, and collaboration among regulators, law enforcement, the judiciary, and the private sector. Beyond the applause, analysts say the decision could reshape Nigeria's banking relationships with Europe, lower transaction costs, and unlock new investment opportunities. On Business Express today, we examine what this truly means for Nigeria and businesses. Joining us virtually is an economist and policy analyst, Dr. Samuel Sampson. A very good morning to you, Mr. Sampson, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. Can you help our viewers understand what it actually means for Nigeria to have been on the EU list in the first place? How did it affect our day-to-day banking transactions and business dealings with European partners?
Well, Nigeria got into the EU high risk lists because they were suspicious of our financial system. They felt there was a lot of dirty money in illicit financial flows. Our anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism framework was weak. And that was why the EU added us to the list. Like you rightly mentioned, FETAF too had us on the list until 3 months ago. And you know, FETAF is a global body, and the EU follows the lead of FATF. So when FATF removed us, it was only a matter of time, it was only natural that the EU itself would remove us because they all have the same objective. While FATF is a global body, the EU is a regional body and it's trying to protect its financial system. So when FATF confirmed to the world that our anti-money laundering and the counting of terrorism financing framework was effective to tackle illicit financial flows, the EU automatically follows suit. And that's what we're seeing today.
Okay, so what specific reforms or institutional changes convinced both FATF and the EU that Nigeria had turned the corner?
Well, a lot of reforms. I think the authorities deserve accolades. They really did their homework. They worked assiduously, and we have seen results, and I hope the results are maintained. Some of the reforms they embarked upon included the strengthening of Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit is more strengthened now, is more independent, right, without too much political interference, and then the coordination of different government agencies that are supposed to tackle anything that has to do with illegal financial flows, such as the EFCC and the CBN, and then, of course, the NFIU, which is supposed to be on top of the list, who are the heart of these tackling these problems. We brought new laws such as Money Laundering Prohibition and Prevention Act, and then Terrorism Prevention and Prevention Act. And a lot of things were brought into play, and that was why FETAF was convinced that we're serious. And then the EU too is agreeing, is concording with FETAF that Nigeria indeed has an effective AML CFT framework that can tackle illicit financial flows, and other financial institutions outside Nigeria have nothing to fear interacting with the Nigerian financial system.
Great. Now that we've been delisted, what immediate benefits should Nigerian businesses and financial institutions expect? Will this make it easier for our banks to process international transactions?
Of course, before the delisting, whether the FETA's delisting or the EU delisting, uh, nobody wanted to touch us with a long pole. We were considered too toxic, too risky, and they embarked on what they call the risking by trying as much as possible to have anything to do with the Nigerian financial system. But now that we have been delisted, they are more comfortable now dealing with us. And if they are more comfortable dealing with us, it will reduce delays because when we were blacklisted or when we were on the list, right? They had to do this enhanced due diligence, EDD. Now you don't have to do enhanced due diligence. It's just a standard diligence that any other country's financial system goes through, that Nigeria will go through. Nothing extraordinary, right? And then cost too. Before the delisting, it was very costly interacting with Nigerian banks because the increased monitoring and the due diligence was very costly, right? And it was costing Nigerian financial institutions or even people embarking on transactions with the outside world extra money for this extra work that needed to be done. So with all these things gone, all this the Nigeria is no longer considered a risky financial system that other financial jurisdictions can easily interact with. So we are hopeful that this would attract investment. Capital flows now will be very easy. Transactions will be quite seamless. And then even trade, trade is not just about the goods and the services. It involves payments too. So it will enhance our trading, our international trade, our import and our export, and so on and so forth. So there'll be benefits to Nigeria. Even our credit rating should improve because of this. It's not automatically going to be so, but it's going to help with our credit rating and ultimately our ability to secure finances or loans from abroad at lower costs and not what we used to have in the past with the additional burden of servicing debts because we were considered a high risk environment and therefore people were expecting us to pay a risk premium, thereby increasing the costs of borrowing for Nigeria.
Could this also improve Nigeria's credit perception among international lenders and credit agencies?
Yes, um, because we are no longer considered a risky environment, so that governance risk is gone. And then you're very sure that when you're dealing with any entity within the Nigerian financial system, that measures have been taken by the authorities to make sure there is proper KYC, there's proper due diligence, that everything is kosher. So if everything is clean or relatively clean, at least the dirty money is being brought to the barest minimum. And if there is default, there is going to be punitive measures, right? It will enhance the confidence that other bodies will have dealing with Nigerian financial institutions, maybe lending to Nigerian businesses, or even lending to Nigerian government, because they're sure that our system is robust enough to tackle anything dirty, anything illicit. And then, like I mentioned, for credit rating, we are not really an investment grade uh, country. So with this now, it will enhance the possibility of Nigeria becoming an investment grade country. And when we become an investment grade country, that will attract capital into Nigeria. And we know we have a lot of challenges that we need capital to tackle, whether it's our infrastructure, particularly around power, or with our healthcare delivery, of our education. If a lot of capital can flow in, that will go a long way in fixing some of these problems. Because the Nigerian authorities on their own and even the private sector might not be able to tackle some of these challenges. So we may need a lot of capital coming in to help us solve some of these problems. And with this capital inflows should improve.
All right, we know that challenges remain because being delisted doesn't mean our work on financial crimes is finished. So, what are the next steps to ensure we don't find ourselves back on such lists?
We cannot afford to be complacent. I think that should be the natural thing. For the fact that we have improved and we have been delisted, that calls for celebration, yes, but we're not there yet. We should not rest on our oars. And we should maintain what we have been doing. The reforms that we introduced should be maintained. The compliance, if possible, we should even improve because we have been delisted before and we still relapsed into the same territory that we shouldn't be. So we cannot afford for that relapse to happen. And one way we can do that is by entrenching these reforms that brought us out in the first place. The moment we relax and allow political interference and allow corruption and a lack of coordination among government agencies and the weakening of the Nigerian financial intelligence units, then we're likely going to be in trouble again by being relisted or by being relisted by the EU as not having sufficiently strong AML and CFT framework.
Great. Dr. Samuel Sampson, thanks for your time. It's always a pleasure having you on Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
Meanwhile,